Guys, in this video, I'm going to be discussing the Kongresshalle, which was an unfinished World War II era hall meant for Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. It was one of the largest architectural projects in the Nazi era, and it intended to symbolize the power and the prominence of the Third Reich. Its planning and construction are tied to the larger Nuremberg rally grounds, which were designed to host massive Nazi rallies, which did happen from 1933 through 1938 before the outbreak of World War II. The Kongresshalle was conceived as a monumental structure for annual Nazi Party congresses. Nuremberg was chosen as the central venue for the Nazi rallies due to its historical significance in German culture and its central location in the Reich. The Kongresshalle was part of a larger complex which included the Zeppelin Field, the Great Road, and the German or Deutsches Stadion, which was never completed. The building was designed mainly by Albert Speer, Hitler's chief architect. It drew inspiration from ancient Roman architecture, specifically the Colosseum in Rome. The U-shaped structure was planned to be 275 meters long, 250 meters wide, and 39 meters tall, with a capacity upwards of 50,000 people. With its classification more so as an arena rather than a stadium, it would be one of the biggest arenas in the world today if it had been finished. It was to be built primarily with brick and granite, featuring an open-air central courtyard for mass gatherings. The design incorporated a massive dome over the courtyard, but this was later abandoned due to engineering challenges. There are several different photos showing different structures and models that could have been chosen by the Nazis, but due to the lack of technology at the time, a more subdued final product was to be produced. Construction began in 1935 during the peak of the Nazi Party rallies in Nuremberg. The project was funded by the Nazi Party with significant labor provided by conscripted workers and private contractors. The foundations and outer shell were completed by 1939, and there are several photos with Hitler visiting the in-progress construction, but work on the interior had barely begun when World War II started, and the outbreak of the war shifted priorities and resources, halting further progress. As you can see from some of the construction photos, including the ones with Hitler visible, they built a wooden test model, fully complete section of the outer construction area, as well as a wooden finished pillar section of the interior. This is something that they did with the Deutsches Stadion as well. I believe it was to test the scale of the project. The Kongresshalle was never completed, leaving behind an imposing hollow structure. After the fall of the Nazi regime, the site was largely abandoned. During the U.S. occupation, parts of the Kongresshalle were used as a storage facility and temporary military base. In the post-war years, there were debates about whether to demolish or preserve the Kongresshalle. It was ultimately decided to preserve it as a historical site. Since 2001, the north wing of the building has housed the Documentation Center, Nazi Party rally grounds, a museum and education center on the history of the regime. The Kongresshalle is the largest surviving example of Nazi architecture and was designed to be even larger than the Roman Colosseum. It was planned to be 16 meters taller than the Roman inspiration. The building's semicircle design was meant to amplify Hitler's voice during speeches. The acoustics were carefully considered to make his voice resonate through the massive structure. Unlike many modern buildings of its scale, the Kongresshalle was constructed largely from bricks, not steel, as Germany was conserving steel for military use in preparation for war. Despite heavy Allied bombing of Nuremberg during World War II, the Kongresshalle sustained only minor damage. It was largely because it wasn't a priority military target. In the 1980s, there was a controversial proposal to turn the Kongresshalle into a museum showcasing the achievements of Nazi architecture. The idea was scrapped in favor of the current Documentation Center. The nearby lake was artificially modified and subsequently expanded to enhance the aesthetic appeal of the Kongresshalle. It was intended to show the grandiose reflection of the building in the waters. Inside the Kongresshalle, there are rows of massive cement pillars intended for support balconies and additional structures, but since construction was never completed, they serve no functional purpose. Some of the windows were deliberately designed at half height during construction, intended to enhance the illusion of monumental scale by contrasting smaller elements with the towering walls. The architects incorporated early anti-earthquake features, such as additional structural reinforcements, to ensure the building would last 1,000 years. Had the Third Reich not fallen, Hitler reportedly envisioned parts of the Congress Hall being used as a military command center in times of war. Rumors do persist of underground tunnels connecting the Congress Hall to other areas of the Nazi rally grounds, though many remain unexplored or inaccessible. Towards the end of World War II, sections of the Congress Hall were allegedly used to store Nazi propaganda materials and sensitive documents. These were later confiscated by Allied forces. In the 1970s, a private developer proposed converting the Congress Hall into luxury apartments, but the plan was quickly abandoned due to its controversial history. The Congress Hall is so massive that less than 15% of its usable space has ever been actively repurposed since the war. In recent years, parts of the Congress Hall roof have been outfitted with solar panels as part of an effort to give the building a modern, productive use. The parking lot was designed to handle thousands of vehicles, reflecting the grand scale of the Nuremberg rally grounds and the anticipated turnout of the Nazi events. Today, portions of the original parking lot are used for modern events, including fairs, exhibits, and festivals, as part of the city's efforts to reclaim or repurpose the rally grounds. The trees in front of the Congress Hall were likely planted as part of a post-war landscaping effort to obscure the building's association with its Nazi origins and to integrate the site into a more broader natural environment. The skylight that was planned over top of the massive arena was meant to flood the interior with natural light, symbolizing the illumination of glory of the Nazi regime. Today, the structure lacks a roof entirely, leaving the hall exposed to weather. The intended skylight area is now part of the open sky visible through the unfinished roof line. If the Congress Hall in Nuremberg had been completed as planned, the first major event likely would have taken place in 1945, coinciding with the Nazi Party's intended timeline for their 1,000-year Reich propaganda.